Welcome to The Mystic Tie, a podcast for Freemasons. I am your host, Troy Sprue. You can find us online at mystictie.com. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mystictie. Email me feedback, guest suggestions, and any other questions at troy@mystictie.com. Today on The Mystic Tie, I am joined by worshipful brother Dago Rodriguez, two-time past master of South Pasadena Masonic Lodge, past master of the Southern California Research Lodge, and creative director of the Fraternal Review. Dago is also joining us at EFC 2026 in Seattle, where he'll present Fight Club and Freemasonry, using the cult classic to explore masculinity, identity, mentorship, virtue and vice, and what happens when men go looking for meaning. Please welcome Brother Dago Rodriguez. Dago Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thanks for joining me today on The Mystic Tie.
Thanks for inviting me.
My listeners are super excited to hear from you. You and I have never spoken before, although we run in similar circles. We have similar friends. We've never run into each other anywhere.
I know. Now we finally get to meet.
Thanks so much for taking time out of your night. I just spent a bunch of time with Doug Russell the day before yesterday, and we were talking about you, and he vouched for you. So that's good enough for me.
Doug's great. Doug was a great mentor at the Southern California Research Lodge, and which is the lodge that publishes the Fraternal Review magazine that I joined in 2015, I believe it was.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about your arc, how you're here speaking for EFC in a few weeks, and what it is that you do in the craft?
I'm a two-time past master of South Pasadena Masonic Lodge, and I served 3 years as the master of the Southern California Research Lodge, which publishes a Fraternal Review magazine that I was managing editor of and then now creative director for since the rebranding of the magazine in 2016. That's when the history, real quick, the Research Lodge was meeting in Orange County and they were looking for a home in Los Angeles. So they were looking for a lodge that was into Masonic education and would take them in and help them grow more. And we were at a point in my lodge where we wanted more Masonic education and to grow out the Masonic education. So we thought it would be a great fit to have the Research Lodge also meet at our lodge, and we would infiltrate it per se and help them expand the publication, the Fraternal Review, which back then it was just black and white Xerox pages that they would fold in half and mail out to everybody.
Like a newsletter is that,
yes.
like that Doug Russell talks about that. They would just blast out a mailed newsletter every month.
And so we took that and I said, I designed the trestle board for my lodge and we do it in color. I know a printer that's really good here locally. Let me do a crack and create one of the magazines and see what you think. And we did a test and they all loved it. And we saw the price point and we saw it was doable. So in 2016, we launched the rebranded Fraternal Review magazine to a lot of acceptance. A lot of people saying, wow, this is cool. It's great that after publishing this since like the 1960s, it's getting this new fresh light. And so that's how we rolled out the magazine that everybody gets today. And it's been a lot of testing, trial by fire stuff, but I think we're not like a Philalethes that it's a heavily heady researched articles in it. It really, I like to call it the bridge into Masonic education for a new Mason that wants to understand Masonic education and expand on their Masonic education. We have varied articles and magazines with different themes every month that really show how wide Masonry can reach, the philosophy of Masonry. And that's a testament to the openness of all the members of the lodge and the necessity and need for Masons and other men and women in esoteric groups to want to understand this Masonry more. And that's been our winning sort of thing with us right now. And we enjoy it. We like putting these themes together. And if you want to learn more, if we shorten articles, you got the accreditation to go find it or the book and expand your mind and research it more, obviously, but what we don't really just beat you over the head with a 20-page research article that you're going to sit and read in this issue. There's going to be no more than 2 or 4 pages and move on to the next point.
Yeah, it's more like a popular magazine rather than a research journal.
Absolutely. Yes. That's exactly what we're doing. Again, the bridge to Masonic education or esoteric education would be what how I would define the Fraternal Review magazine.
Excellent. Make sure you bring some copies with you when you come.
Oh, we definitely
Uh,
will. We
Doug
definitely will bring
Doug
them.
Russell usually brings a
We'll have some
pile of them.
annuals and some recent
Yeah,
copies that we'll bring with us. And then from there, yeah, we just kept moving with it. Doug served, then I served, and Gerald served, and we've had guest editors that have themes that they bring forth and we publish in with guiding them in that process. And then an Angel Millar, that's our editor in chief now, that will do have the final say in like how it's gonna go into the publication. So it's definitely a group effort and a labor of love to get 11 issues out every year. I think we're the
yeah,
only Masonic publication that publishes every month like this,
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
There used to be lots, but
Oh yeah, I mean,
they've all
yeah,
collapsed over the years or gone strictly online or with the membership change. It's remarkable you guys are still producing a
yeah,
physical item, and I don't collect it. Um, but I do read it down at the Masonic Library quite often
good,
when we
good.
have copies there, and I see it quite often, and perhaps I should start looking at it.
Yeah, because one day you might be one of those guest editors for one of those issues,
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time.
and then what?
Yeah, and then what? And then next month you got to do it all again. I was joking with again, I don't want to keep referring to what I just did, but Doug Russell and I
No,
had a really good laugh about why anybody would take on the task of a Masonic periodical. Oh, and while you continue to talk about your Masonic periodical, let me go get another one that just came out that I want to talk about. I don't know if you saw the podcast with Alex Rafaela.
no,
Shreya, here, hang on a second.
yeah.
You know, Shreya in England just did this, and it's their version of a periodical, and it's a beautiful. This is highly influenced. It's beautiful, full color, oh, and it's full bleed, right? Produced more like a comic book than a magazine. I would say Moore's Bumper Book heavily influential in something like this coming out, but it's great.
And that's a Masonic magazine?
Well, it's the Rosicrucian. It's from Societas
Rosicrucians. Okay.
Rosicruciana in Anglia.
Okay.
So SRICF to you guys in the States. And
Hmm.
Alex Rafaela is the editor, and they did this first edition called Hermeticism. And I've been a big fan. I got piles of them here, and we'll have them at the book table at the conference. But
Okay, good. I was going to say
it's
bring him to the conference. I'm interested.
these specialized periodicals are coming out again, and there were a lot of occult periodicals that came out over the last 25 years. They've been coming out twice a year or editions once a year or every other year or however they've been doing it. But it is something that seems to have seen a resurgence, like physical periodicals like that. But then again, talking to Doug, it's like, why would anybody take on this quest to make themselves do this every month for years and years? He did it. It's just my hat's off to you because
Well, and also,
that's a lot.
And Doug was the one running out there. He would take yearly trips to the Ohio Masonic Library or the House of the Temple in DC
Wow.
with the list of themes that we wanted to publish that month. And he would go in there and research books, articles, other periodicals that we can grab information from and
Wow.
create those issues. And if there was anybody those early issues that he was in charge of, pretty much,
Yep.
like those were truly Doug digging into research and pulling them together.
Yeah.
And but now it's evolved into you have more original writers contributing to,
That's good. Yeah.
and
That's what you want.
that's what's changed a lot now with the guest editors and the influence they have with other esoteric or Masonic writers that can contribute original pieces to the work. That's where I think we started to grow more and
Yeah.
gain more credibility and more respect from the Masonic echelon, if you will.
Are you currently serving as an officer or are you between?
Yeah, right now I'm serving as a marshal, but I'm still the creative director of the issue, and we all have an executive team that gets together every year and finalizes the themes for the following year, which is what we're just about to do in the next couple of months.
Oh, great.
So we get theme ideas from different guest editors to be that submit, and then we sit there with about 40 to 50 different themes, and we could only publish 11, so we see how we can make it nice and varied, if you will. So you have a pop culture issue, a historical issue, a symbolic issue, a biographical issue, an esoteric issue. So it's kind of a variety every month that you get, and not just the same standard thing, if you
That's
will.
am- that's amazing.
You know,
That's I should make more effort to look at it. I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, I see it every month. I don't. I should look at it more often.
it's only 16 pages, Troy. You could do
Yeah.
it.
Yep, I should.
You could do it when you're having coffee in the morning.
I've been complaining about my stack of reading material. Lewis Masonic sent me
Boom.
probably 60 or 70 different books
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple of years, like a year and a half ago. And there's just so much to be read. I'm usually reading up to 6 books at any given time. And I don't read a lot of fiction. I do get to some, but I think the last thing I finish is this George R. R. Martin, The Rise of the Dragon, that's right back here.
Mm,
And I read The Stand, I reread The Stand and the rest of the Dark Tower
beautiful.
recently to finish it. And I could tell anybody who reads, if you read a lot of fiction, it's worth reading. If you don't have a lot of patience for fiction, just read the last few chapters of the Dark Tower, especially if you're into esotericism, and tell
Mm.
me Stephen King hasn't got some sort of occult practice going on
Oh,
for
for
sure.
sure, right? Yeah.
You could
Some
really
adding.
you really
Has he
see
ever
it.
been asked? Because I've seen some of his interviews, and nobody, I don't think anybody's ever asked him if he's gone into esoteric circles and things like that.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to
I
know.
don't know. I've never done the research. That would be interesting. But I'm sure somebody knows. There's
We'll
there's
ask
people
AI after.
there's people throwing things at their car radio right now. They're like, "You dopes! This has been covered.
He's been asked already.
You
Where
you
have you been?
dummies! Go listen to this over here."
These neophytes. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you're no Stephen King fan. I have too much to read,
I,
but
I understand completely.
there's a level of Masonic input I'm always consuming. I read that Rosicrucian. It's 60 some odd pages. It's not very big, but it's 6 articles. It's really good. And it's worth a
Okay,
look. If you're into esotericism and you
sure.
don't have a copy, make sure to at least glance at one that we have at the book table.
Well, you're going to be selling them there, right?
I believe we will have copies. If they haven't sold out already, we will have copies there.
Will
I would
Alex
bring
be
these copies, but of course, I'm not bringing anything into the States when I come.
okay?
Not a single thing, because you just going to get tariffed or turned away at the border. So
Will Alex be there?
Alex is not coming this year. We had firmed up our speakers list before I even talked to Alex, but I would bet dollars to donuts that if he were to submit a paper, he would be accepted at
Oh,
our conference for next year if he's willing to travel to Seattle to come and speak. If we do it again next year, and if it is in fact in Seattle, we'll probably see him. I think he resides most of his time in Spain. Really good guy. It was an excellent interview. Anyway, we're not here
awesome.
to talk about him. We're here to talk about you. And thanks again for the background and the Fraternal review. We'll definitely have copies, and people should check it out. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about the talk you put forward for Esotericism and Freemasonry Conference 2026 that you'll be presenting on September 19th at the Ballard Masonic Center? Tickets are
Beautiful.
$50 available on our website, esotericmasonry.com. How's that for an ad?
That's great. Thank you for the invite. You reached out and I accepted. Fight Club and Freemasonry is a talk that I will be presenting, and that talk was inspired at another event called Masonicon in South Pasadena, where we were putting together a panel, and we wanted to put together a pop culture panel, and the likes of Robert Johnson and Michael Jarzabek and I were discussing it, and I said Fight Club is celebrating its 20th anniversary release of the film that year it was. So why don't is we've talked about this film before. Why don't we talk about it in how it connects or has some similarities to Freemasonry? And they were
Mhm.
like, yeah, let's do it. It's so off the wall that I think it'll be interesting. So
Yeah.
we sat there and for 45 minutes had a roundtable discussion moderated by Adrian Foley, past master of Santa Monica Palisades Lodge. And there was just so much more to talk about that we could have had that discussion go longer, but obviously because of time we didn't, but that left that seed planted in my head, I was like, there could be an issue, a magazine that we could put together for the Fraternal Review, pop culture-esque, comparing this. And I already have two writers right here in this panel that would definitely love to contribute something to it. So we did. So now I was convincing the Doug Russells to okay, because we had done a Star Wars and Freemasonry a year before, 2 years before, and that
Right.
was a big success. So we hadn't done another pop culture one since then. And this one is not Star Wars, obviously, and it's got a whole nother level of themes, understanding, and adulthood, if you will,
Yeah.
that we weren't sure if it was politically correct, appropriate, like how is this going to really be perceived by our readers. But after some digging and explaining, I really just convinced them that this was really a study on masculinity and the need for role models. And what is Masonry doing to answer the call when men of any age walk into our lodges looking for something to emulate? Especially
Right.
nowadays when a lot of men are on their phones, they're being influenced by caricatures and social media that they have no guidance. They're raised by
Right.
single parents, usually a mother, no father. So, and I've seen this happen in my lodge. They walk into our lodges because of something they read online. They're curious and they come knocking on our doors, basically asking, "Tell me who I am." And that search for identity is important and dangerous to be given that responsibility from a stranger, right?
Right.
But if we take good men and make them better, how are we as a seasoned Masons answering that call?
Right.
And so Fight Club is a foundation of what happens when you don't have role models to guide you. When Fight Club, you're debauchery and you're destroying those corporations, but in Freemasonry, you are building buildings of service and assistance, right? And in Fight Club, you're doing the complete opposite. You're destroying them. And this is because there's not these role models that are helping to guide you in how to better serve the world around you and how to better contribute. Because when you help one, you help all, right? And this is the spine of the conversation that we
Right.
have with this Fight Club and Freemasonry talk that I'll be bringing to the your conference. And that was what convinced the senior editors of the magazine at that time to say, "Oh, okay, this sounds interesting. Show us the articles first." So
Right.
then we started. Then I just made the calls and I said, "Look, give me an angle, an article slanted on this thing. You write me an article slanted in this thing." And so slowly it came together, and even I was like impressed. I was like, "Wow, it really is turning into something bigger than what I had expected." And we went on and agreed to publish it in April of 2020. And that's when what happened? The
Yeah.
pandemic and
Pandemic.
everything shut down the month before.
Right.
So in a way, it was lucky for us because everybody was home with something more time to read.
Yeah.
So it became the most popular issue that year, the most
Huh.
downloaded issue
Look
of
at
the
that.
year. So it was cool. So we saw that need. So of it obviously triggered something, and a year later is when I finally put the first fragments of this talk together. And as the years have gone by and I've been delivering it and reading more and understanding more, it's been refined and refined to what you're going to get at your conference. So I think people are going to get something out of this that they were not expecting. I think that's always what happens. They're like, "Oh, Fight Club and Freemason, how is this going to connect?" And they're very skeptical, right? And then once it's over, they're like, "Wow, it's you really made points that I was not expecting with this." And I really would like the audience to just kind of leave thinking about their responsibility to their lodges and what they're contributing to their lodges. Are you being builders or are you being destroyers of this lodge? And that's the power of what I discovered through this book and film and how I saw those connections with Masonry.
It's not unprecedented. We had Zane McCune a number of years ago did a Pinocchio talk,
Mm,
the Disney animated Pinocchio, and talked about its relationship to Freemasonry. So I'm excited to see what conclusions you draw. To read both the book and seen the movie and many times, and it's popular to talk about things like shadow work, but this is confronting the darker aspects of self.
yeah, the
Or
duality of man.
or the
Well,
things you hide
yeah,
from yourself, right?
yeah.
People are always
Well,
asking me if I know Tyler Durden, right?
exactly.
And that's
No,
that does he do you know yourself,
do
Temet
you
Noske?
know thyself?
Yeah,
Exactly. And also that's kind of like there's one angle where you're the divestment of material possessions, which is
sure.
something that we learn early in Masonry, and which the
Yeah,
movie kind of really amplifies when his apartment blows up and he tells him, now that you lost everything, you're free. He's like, what? But I needed my blanket, I needed my china. But those are just things that define you in the wrong area. And
right.
Masonry basically say the same thing, like,
Yeah,
right? If
yeah,
you're not to be judged by your worldly possessions and things like that, it's your character. Who
right.
are you as a human being and who are you as a man?
A study in virtue and vice.
Yes, a
And
study in
that
virtue and vice.
and that's philosophical artwork, like Fight Club. It's so easy to breeze past it or pass over it because it's awfully visceral and violent,
Oh, yeah.
right? But it does have a very important message, I think,
Well,
and an incredible philosophical background and basis to it.
but then that's the thing. When I first saw this film, I saw it in the theaters when it first came out, and I didn't like it. I thought, like this whole twist at the end is it was done already by The Sixth Sense. I don't get this, but wait, this doesn't really connect. But you know what it did? I was haunted by it.
Mm,
After the theater, like I just kept thinking about it, the imagery, what they were saying, what was going on in my life. And a week later, I went back to see it again, and I was like, I think this is the film of my generation.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think, especially because back when it first came out, if you remember, it was just getting bashed and it was too violent. It was like, you shouldn't see this, masochistic. And it wasn't really popular. It didn't really make that much money. It was
right.
more of a cult film later. It
Yes.
gained that
Yeah.
popularity, but it was because of that. It was just this haunting idea that this was actually a mirror to the generation of that time. And even subsequently, it still holds, it still echoes to this day after I've watched it recently again. And I'm just like, just impressed by the level of understanding by the author Chuck Palahniuk when he wrote it as his anti-establishment book,
Yeah.
because his first book, Invisible Monsters, was not published by, it was neglected by the publishers. It's not
Right.
good enough, get out of here. And
Right.
this was his anti-establishment rant towards that, right?
Right.
And that's the one that put him on the map, really. And
Eh,
so it's interesting how it has grown and it still grows with layers as we get older and as time passes by. So we'll see when we're gone if that story, that film, that book continues to live on in the pop culture stratosphere.
Hey, you look back on the time, and this is a time of fantastic film, right?
Yeah. Matrix came out that year.
Yeah, you okay. Yeah,
It came
all
out
right.
that year.
So that
Yeah.
there again, you've got this highly philosophical, incredibly deep story, but done in such a manner that the cyberpunk treatment of it. Fight Club is a whole other thing entirely,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's still artwork that begs to be taken seriously,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
right?
it really puts a mirror on the dark side of human nature. I
And
really,
there's a lot more going on in these artworks, and I see film especially, but the moving picture, but big budget film as that is the mirror to our society. That's the highest art.
when done right, yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's certainly the most popular art and
Yeah.
the art that's the most invested in this
Oh,
society, right?
yeah.
Although things have changed somewhat for that for Hollywood, it still is this high art form. And it's great to see commentators like you taking it seriously with regards to our work because it is also a reflection of the society that it exists within.
Yeah, exactly. What culture is it in now, right? It's like and that's kind of the discussions I have with the officers in our lodge is it's you really need to listen to the new men that join the lodge and see and feel the pulse of what's going on because if a lodge does not evolve, it dies.
Yeah.
And that's been proven to me over and over. So I confidently can say that if you're too close-minded, if you're going to be very picky in who you allow, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And
Yeah.
that is historically that's what happened, right? In the 50s, a golden era after the World War II. It was an influx. It was just so many Masons. You were just opening a lodge in every city.
Yep.
From the culture that changed after that, the hippies. Why am I going to have this bell-bottom, long-haired, pot-smoking hippie join our lodge? We have enough members. We don't need them. And there's the
Yeah.
non-Masonic thing that
Yeah.
and the missed opportunity that
Sure.
happened for the next two generations. And now you're those same people are sitting in their lodges in the 1980s thinking, shit, like, where are the people?
Yeah. Where did everybody go? Why does
Where did
nobody
everybody
want to come
go?
over here? It's
Why
because
why don't they want to hang out with us?
it's because of the ossification. The Wages and I just talked about this. The corporatization and the ossification of the ritual made it. I said it made it somewhat dull, and he weighs in. He's like, "Yeah, it made it suck.
It made it suck. Yeah.
It made it suck."
It,
And to
it,
make to
not
make
just the ritual, but just the whole experience of
yeah,
it.
to make a lodge a monoculture is going to make it suck. You
Yes.
should be able to love your brethren and get along with them, but you also need some tension and some difference in order for us to truly celebrate what it means to sit in lodge together, right? If you're gonna meet with carbon copies of yourself all the time, like you got to have the different generations in there, and that's the point.
Yeah, and people with different opinions, different beliefs, different
Yep,
faith, and I think that's what makes the idea of Masonry much more special than important is that we can all dwell in the same space and be on the level, as we say, right? And still work for the greater good of all of us,
sure.
right? And that's the magic of it, that if you're smart enough or clear enough or you paid attention is what makes it such a special organization if it's done right. If it's done right.
People within the range of the sound of my voice, please come to Seattle September 19th and meet Dago Rodriguez in person. Listen to his presentation and then tell him he's totally wrong. You'll have that
Yes,
right to stand up and ask questions at the end of the
absolutely.
presentation. This is
Just
what
don't throw
makes the
things at me, but just tell prove me wrong. Prove
is
me
what
wrong.
makes masonry dynamic. If you're angry and throwing shit at your radio right now, please go buy your ticket. You're the people we need. Go buy your ticket
Yes.
and just come on down for some good old fraternal tension. We
It was always good when half of the crowd hates it.
yeah, I say that all the time. The Masonic leadership test is if you're not pissing somebody off, you're not doing it right. You're too milk toast. You're too middle of the road if everybody agrees. Look, please come and see us at EFC 2026. You won't regret
Yes.
it. And all of this material will be captured, but who knows if we're going to release it? Probably not. It could be years. You might have to wait years. Come and see it in person. There's nothing like it. Brother, I want to shift gears and ask you some of the fundamental questions we ask everybody who comes on the podcast for the first time. How did you join Freemasonry?
I joined, well, I was always curious about it and was always intrigued by the esoteric philosophies, but didn't have back then. It's not what it is now, where it was like you have all these published things accessible to you, the internet, also the movies, the books, like it's the podcast. None of that
Yeah,
was around when I was a little pup, intrigued with the esoteric world and masonry. It was just that dark, doom-looking building off to
right.
the side over there with a square and compass.
And the
But
guys
one
in nice suits coming and going all the time.
if I never even saw people coming and going, it was just there. It was always clean, but I was like, who is in there? One of my film school friends from film school, he actually became a Mason and then told me he was one. And he said to me, I think you would really connect with this and enjoy it. I've already become what they call a Master Mason, and come have a dinner at my lodge and see what you think. And so I was like, really? You became a Mason? Like, how did this? Like, I would have never thought he would have joined, but he was intrigued too. And he was now a
Yeah.
Master Mason
Yep.
and proud of it. He had his own suit. I was like, wow, the pin. And so he took me to a meeting and I was intrigued. And I said, how long do I have to wait? So there was the process and I eventually got in, but that lodge that I belonged to wasn't really into the education. It really was just doing what it needed to do to survive.
Yep.
And not until I became a senior officer, like a senior deacon, and had to start memorizing the ritual. And in film, you have to look between the lines and analyze and understand what does this really mean? What am I really saying? And that's when I was going on to trips to the PRS, the Philosophical Research Society here in Los Angeles, and
Yep.
opening up all the books that they had. The Manly P. Halls now were getting discovered. And I was like, wow, this is an onion that I'm going to be peeling for the rest of my life. But there are things in these lectures that I'm memorizing that it's proving what I thought it meant correct. So
Right.
there is some magic here, and this is something special. So why are we not talking about this more? And that's when I started to question the elder brothers at the lodge, like, hey, why aren't we discussing this? Why aren't we having classes? Why aren't we having talks? And not until I was getting closer to become the master, and there were much more like-minded Masons now joining the lodge, becoming officers behind me, that we started to cultivate that educational movement within the lodge. And then all of a sudden, this thing called observant masonry started happening.
Yep.
And we were like, what? That's
Yeah.
what we are starting to do in our lodge. There's a name
Right.
for this? Books about this? Wait, who? Hammer? Who else? Otis? What? So
Yeah.
it became this, now there's a zeitgeist in the air that we are all searching for a more profound experience because we know it's in there, but it's been sheltered. And
Right.
we need to water it and let that seed grow or kick it open and make it happen. And that's how the lodge slowly progressed into an educational lodge, my lodge. And that's where the floodgates started to open, and it was now lectures, talks, classes for the each degree, rooms of reflection, Masonic cons. It's and the fraternal review or the research lodge joining or meeting at our lodge and sharing on those educational labors that we felt compelled that we wanted to explore and share with other individuals. And that's really what I think that comes out of the pages of the Fraternal Review. It's labors of love that people find intriguing and interesting, that they say, hey, I think you might like this. Why don't you give it a read at least and see what you think? But that's kind of like my trajectory and how I started and I got into Masonry and have stayed with Masonry in my 16 year 16-year span of being a Mason now.
I want to take you back to your first few comments. Do you remember any particularly influential media or book that you read as a young person that kind of set you on this path? In my case, I talk about this. I had my mom's second husband, my stepfather Paul, was a conspiracy theorist, and he left the Temple and the Lodge and Holy Blood, Holy Grail lying about, and I read them both. And I didn't, I clearly, maybe I was like, oh, this sounds like a conspiracy, this more of this conspiracism. Maybe I bought into it, maybe I didn't, but it was that Wes Regan and I talk about this all the time. It was the conspiracy theorists that set us on a path to intersect with the craft. Me too. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and I spent a lot of time with rock music. And I was a reactionary Christian as a teenager, right? And I was that kid at the youth group that was like, oh, I could help you guys identify all the satanic imagery. And in the end,
Mm,
I play for the other team now.
I do research.
Yeah. So was there something, do you remember something in particular, a movie? Some guys say like National Treasure, even though it's kind of B movie material, it still is like a recruitment drive for the craft, really, when you
It
watch it.
was and I had seen National Treasure, and it didn't hit me till after I became a Mason. Oh, that's right. There was a Masonry in there. No, honestly, I was Manly P. Hall's the Keys to Freemasonry.
Yeah.
That was one of the first books that was brought to my attention that I read, and I just fell in love with the way he described Masonry, the philosophy of it, the symbolism of it, how it relates to human nature and your life. And I was just like, wow, is it really like this when you join Masonry? So then I said, I don't want to get too deep into it because I want to go through the experience.
Right.
Later, somebody said, Freemasonry for Dummies, HODEP. And I was like, I'm no dummy. I don't need to read, but they go, no, read it. And I read it and I was like, wow, this is definitely, this kind of tells you everything without telling
Yeah.
you everything. And now I recommend that to any new visitors that ask me, what should I read without telling me everything? I'm like, read Freemasonry for Dummies and let your wife read it, your mom, your dad, your kids, because it'll give everybody the breadth of what the
Yeah.
experience is going to be like, and killing away all that fear
Yeah.
that comes
And it
with it.
demystifies, right? It's not
Yes.
full of mystical or esoteric language, and it's not trying to be anything it isn't. Yeah.
To me, the concern
Copies
at
right here.
first was just like the ritual. I was like, what kind of ritual are they going to put me through? What kind of hazing are they
Right.
going to put me through? But if my buddy from film school was able to manage it, then I should be able to manage it. So it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be. So once I got my first degree, I was like, okay, this is how it's going to go. And so that, so that I think, yeah, Family P Hall was my first introduction to the craft on a literary sense and in a film sense. Nothing comes to mind that I was like, oh, it's masonry. That's intriguing. I remember watching the skulls, the movie The Skulls of the
Yep.
frat, right? And like
Yep.
the initiations and
Sure.
like the underworld with all that stuff. And I was like, oh, is this how everything's going to play out when you join this? But
Yep.
no, when you're arguing about pancakes and green beans, it's just like it just kills it there. Yeah.
Why you
Questions? You just
joined?
asked me questions. Why I joined? Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Okay. So we know why you joined. And lots of guys join and they don't like their lodge for whatever reason. This isn't what I thought it would be, the green beans or the chain chasers or whatever it is you got against the craft that the lodge that you were raised in. Of course, nobody knows any better. They join a lodge, they join the lodge they have access to, right?
Yes. And that's what
So,
happened to me, right? Because I joined that one lodge and ended up affiliating with the lodge I'm currently at now because the lodge that I joined was just really not growing in that educational sense that
yeah,
started to turn me on that I was like, oh. And something else that happened with that lodge was that it got its charter pulled because again, like we talked before, there was a rotten apple amongst them that was embezzling money from the lodge. He got
yeah,
caught. But
stuff like that
before
does
the
happen.
trial happened, they pulled a
We're not
charter.
infallible, right?
Yeah, and it was closed for almost 2 years. So we were allowed to travel to other lodges, and that's how I stumbled. And that's something I hadn't even heard from them. You can travel to other lodges and see what it's like at other lodges. So it's like, oh, travel. So me and my buddy went to South Pasadena, and immediately when I walked in, it wasn't what it is now, but there was this feeling when you walked into that lodge that just spoke to me immediately. The
Yep.
ghosts were there, and they were hungry and they saw us walk in and they were like, stay.
Yeah.
And I just kept coming. And it was also closer to where I lived. So I just kept showing up and they just started to get a liking to me. Then I slowly started helping them out, became a junior officer, and then I was sucked in and I didn't want to
Yeah.
leave it anymore. But at that lodge, I saw this blank canvas of a potential that if they allowed me to fail, we can definitely create something that hasn't been seen in the lodges around us, right? And they did, and it did become that, and that's I think a testament to their trust and our guts or ego. I don't know if it was the ego, just kind of let's try this and see if this works because this is what we're looking for. This is how why aren't we not talking about this in the lodges? All right, try. And we had a lecture that only 4 people showed up to, and now we have lectures where we get 50 to 70 people coming to. So
Yeah. That's
it
great.
it's evolved again, the evolution, right? Allowing a lodge to evolve and and change is what the secret sauce to keeping lodges afloat and thriving, I think, and what I've learned.
I talk about it all the time on the podcast. Look, if you were initiated and you drifted away because your lodge wasn't what you thought it was going to teach you, hopefully you took a demit and didn't just drift away and stop paying your dues because there are other lodges. And
Yeah.
if you're in a city, there's probably 20 other other lodges. You just need to find the right group of guys looking back at you, right?
Yeah.
And,
And that's what
and
I tell the guys when they visit lodge. When you visit our lodge as a visitor, we encourage you to go visit other lodges before you make a decision to join our lodge.
right,
Because when you put in your application, we want to make sure that undoubtedly, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was the best fit for you. Because lodges, I tell them, are like high schools. You got one that's got a great football team, one that's got a great debate team, one that's got a good science program. If you're a football player, why are you going to join the lodge with a science program? You're not going to get the biggest bang out of it, right?
right.
So it's the same with lodges. Some lodges do more social things, others like the education, others the ritual. Some mix the bag with a little of everything. So you just have to go see which ones which one you connect to on that level.
Yep.
And they do, and a lot of them do. They go, and then you know what? 2 months later, they're back, and they're like, you know what? I think this is the lodge for me. And I go, okay. So keep showing up.
Yeah,
Keep
good, good.
showing up.
That usually the next question I ask is, why did you stay? But you've told the story. You found a home, and you and the people around you changed it into what you wanted it to be. And there's lots of opportunity for that in the craft. Again, lots of lodges aren't as change resistant as people joke about. Uh,
Yeah.
Quite a few lodges are just looking for people with some passion to come on board and
Period.
take it and run with it. And
People that are willing to roll up their sleeves
yeah,
and do the labor in the quarry, right?
yeah,
Do the work and not be
yeah,
lazy. Not, I just want to sit here and I want you to feed me. No,
yeah,
get up and help me cook. And together we'll cook a really good meal that you'll be able to take with you and cook over and improve upon after you and I are done cooking it.
yeah.
And that I think is the thing that lodges also need to learn, that you have to encourage them to contribute. They got
It's a
to
gen
contribute.
it's a generational thing too. To guys, especially with the shrinking of the nuclear family, the way it works. Like my mom had five siblings, my dad had seven brothers. They all got married, they all had kids. I had this enormous family.
Wow.
But most people now, like in my generation, that was it for that. All the kids from those kids had one or two, some had three. That's it. And now with this generation, of course, coming up behind us, most of them are not having any kids, right? So our families have really shrunk. You don't get a chance to hang out with old guys that'll just be guys
Yeah,
like you
then that's
do in a
true.
lodge context, right? And
Yes, sir.
this is where the festive board really plays a role, but in the lodge too, like older guys have a lot to teach us.
Oh, absolutely. I think when I first started coming there, I naturally just gravitated towards the older guys who were more willing to share what they knew and their experiences. I'm like, I'm talking to a 50-year Mason here.
Yeah,
He's going to know more than that guy that's been here 5 years, than the
yeah,
master that's been here 7 years. He is going to be able to enlighten me on what worked in the decades that he was a Mason.
right.
So I always got a kick out of that. And I also noticed that our older brothers, when they come to the lodge, they also live longer.
Yeah,
They
they
live
do.
longer. They have
They're,
something to look forward to, and because they're excited to see us just as much as we're excited to see them. So
yeah.
there's a level of appreciation that we have for each other, and those generational years of wisdom that they can share with us. That's really cool. I think that's something that you're not going to get anywhere else.
There is an effect, they call it the church effect. I should get the study where they've published the results that people who are regularly attending a church live like 4 or 5 years longer on average. And I don't know if they say in the study, but I would posit that you get the exact same benefits from being involved in Freemasonry.
Sure. I think there was that documentary on Netflix, I forget what it's called, about social groups and how it was proven that,
Join or die? Are you talking
yeah,
about the bowling alone guy? Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
I talk about it all the time, and I can never remember his name. But Bowling Alone was his book, and then they did a recent but worth watching if your lodge needs education. Get a Netflix
absolutely. I
account
was going to
and
say that.
get together
I
and
was just
watch
going to say
Join
that.
or Die, and then
It,
talk about it.
it's
It
very insightful, and
fantastic.
you should definitely watch it at your lodge. I think the senior officer should have an officer meeting, watch that, and discuss it.
Yeah.
That's a great educational tool for them.
We hosted a movie night, Lodge of Education Research, Vancouver Lodge of Education and Research here at Agnes Street. We put it up on the big screen. We didn't charge for it because we weren't sure what the rights on Netflix would be. So we went to the movie theater and bought popcorn, like big bags of popcorn.
Hmm.
And we served everybody popcorn and had everybody in to watch a movie for free. And we opened it to the public. We didn't get many members of the public. We didn't advertise it very far, but we should probably do it again. We had really good local turnout, though, like 50, 60 brethren
Oh, wow.
came to watch it
Great.
together. Yeah. And that, what a blast it was. And we had really good discussion. In fact, we probably could have talked longer than the movie was because it's about
Oh, for
75, 80
sure, for
minutes.
sure.
And,
I absolutely.
and you could just go, and there's so much in there.
So many layers on leadership and that idea of, again, being of service. What do you have to offer? Being a role model, and again, leading by example. And I think in masonry, this is where we've lost our way in that, and misunderstand that, again, because we came into lodges that it was all about quantity and not quality, and all that sort of over the decades disappeared. And so you have to relearn that as a member of your lodge and as you grow to be a senior officer, when you wake up and realize, shit, like I'm here to be an example to these guys, or else they're going to be clowns that are going to be running my lodge if they don't live up to a certain standard that we want to have here, right?
Yep.
And I think that's where the leadership and that snap into walking a straight line happens
Yeah.
to you when you're a Mason, which is a good tool, which is a
Yeah.
good educational tool for you, a tool for you
Yes.
as well. And that's, but if you're not aware of it, then it's just a whole mess that you're creating and nobody wants to stay and support it.
Mm.
Again, what example are we giving those new Masons that are entering our lodges at our home lodges, right? What are we creating there? Why are you giving them a degree if you're not going to really put a lot of love and effort into this degree? And that's why the observant movement started, and they wanted us to be more aware, right? More
Yeah.
take our time, do it correctly, and not just hurry up and brush us through it.
Yeah.
Make it a true ceremony, not this stamp go, stamp go, stamp go,
Yeah.
stamp go.
Yeah. And uh, not that there's a problem with degree mills per se. They have their place, but turning over candidates without ever trying to feed them spiritually or philosophically, I think is a mistake, right?
Well, yeah, if you're not going to
We, how
build on the
many
ritual,
how many men are out there and they are Freemasons? They're always going to be Freemasons, and they just drifted away after a few years and never set foot back in the lodge. Those guys have missed, like a near miss. They've missed probably the most transformative experience of their lives because they already had the degrees. There's more degrees. Go get some more. Or be exemplified in a lodge that's really comfortable delivering meaningful ritual. And that's happening more and more.
sure. But also on top of that, not just deliver the ritual, but then have moments afterwards where they are educating you on what you just went through. Because
Right?
you could get the ritual. When I got my first degree, I was so impressed by all the memory work that they were doing that everything they were saying was so dense that it just was going over my head.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
you have to come back, sit and watch it again and again. Oh, oh, that's what they said. But then it's okay, so what does that mean? How does that affect me? Why does it matter? How do I apply that not only in the lodge, but also in the world outside of the lodge to improve myself and the world around me? See,
Mm.
those are the discussions that then we started to have with our and our apprentices after they received their first degrees, our fellow crafts after they received their degrees, just so they were aware on how to apply these tools and principles outside of the lodge to really see that they can work. They're not just little cute philosophical ideas we're throwing at you so then you could just say you're a Mason. It's like actual building tools for your character.
Yeah. And the degrees work. I say this a lot. The degrees work on several levels too, right?
Yeah.
And as an entered apprentice, that's like having the degrees conferred on you, all three, or however many you get.
Yeah.
But if you don't stick around to see other people get the degrees, which is like being a fellow crap,
Yes.
and you don't stick around long enough to actually confer parts of the degree, which is like being a master mason, or to play the role of the worshipful master and actually raise a master mason yourself, you're not getting the full value of the degree. And so you hear things like Alex and I were joking about it. A couple of other interviews I've had recently. Give it 10 years and you'll get it figured. But it does take a number of years. You've got to give it a chance to take root and for the words to be alive, for the living word
For sure.
of our ritual to take
Well, you
root
got to let it
and
sit. You
grow.
got to let it gestate. The seed's got to sprout after you water it, fertilize it, give it some sunshine,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't grow overnight, and that's part of the layers of the ritual that you have to, like you said, be part of and then help deliver. Because, like I said, when not until I became a senior deacon and had to memorize the lectures, did I start to really see masonry on a whole nother level that I
Right.
was like, wow, there's so much here that everybody is missing. Why? Why are we letting them walk away and not understand this on the level that I'm understanding it now?
Right.
And that's how you start to make that change in the people around you and your lodge if they allow you. But if you become master, as you do it in degrees, slowly introducing
Yeah.
little elements here and there without going from 0 to 120 miles an hour in 1 year, the culture will change. The
Yeah.
culture will evolve. And that's what happened to me in our lodge, where the when I was already a senior warden, for example, the guy behind me was already experiencing the chamber of reflection, the incense, the candles. So when he became master, he does not recognize our lodge in any other manner but those elements that were already in place. But when I
Hmm.
came into this lodge, those elements didn't even exist. See, that cultural shift was gradual. So now it's like a common thing. What, we're not going to have these elements? No, we got to
Right.
have them.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It's not
Yeah.
a
That
proper
we've all,
degree if we don't
and
have
now
them.
you could say we've always done it this. We've always
Yeah,
done it this
now
way.
I can say it's always
Right.
been this
Yeah.
way. What are you talking
It's all.
about?
Yeah. They don't know you're absolutely bullshitting them. It was not always this way. We made it this way. It's better this way. This is what was always intended.
This
Listen,
is how it's always been since I've been
ser-
here.
seriously for a minute, and this may be controversial, and I brush up against controversial stuff all the
That's
time.
fine.
There is a lot of public discourse about the problem with men, manosphere influencers. So much of it is it's just manipulation of a consumer, in my opinion. So much of it is
Sure.
just
Yeah.
it's a bullshit philosophy. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I have no patience for any of it. But I believe there is a difficulty caused by maybe not the breakdown of the family, but just the world changing so quickly around us that people don't have masculine role models in their lives. And this is exactly one of the things that Freemasonry would have been for had it still had a central component to our society. Again, bowling alone, 1/3 of adults in the 1920s and 30s, 1/3 of adults, not men, 1/3 of adults would have belonged to a fraternal organization, a union, or a sports team of some kind, right? So everybody was members, and now way less than that. I think Freemasonry needs to play a role in a proper discourse around the problem with men. I don't even want to use that term because it's been co-opted by the wrong political forces, in my opinion.
Yes, I
So
agree.
can Freemasonry play a role? And in what way should it play a role?
I just, it just goes back to this talk, right? Like when we were just discussing earlier, where we have to be examples to those coming in, and that masculine ideal it must can be redefined by Freemasonry, right? Without being the social media masculine ideal, that looks maxing thing that I've been hearing and seeing a lot about, right? It's what does it mean to be a man in this society?
Right?
What are those values that create a well-rounded man in this society? And I think Masonry has every single opportunity to answer that call and rise to it if we are properly raising men in our lodges and giving them and bestowing them that education and that knowledge. But when you're not, when you're more worried about how you're going to feed the guys at night, pizza or hamburgers or green beans, or how are we going to pay for the lights? I think that there's a level of responsibility that has to come from the top in that understanding of there's a big responsibility that you have.
Yeah.
And how are you going to answer that responsibility? Are you capable to answer that responsibility? Because if you're a screw up at this lodge and then you're going to be inspiring the guys that are going to come in, no, they're going to see through that after their first degree. They're not going to want to come back anymore. And they're going to be bad mouthing the Masons of that lodge and
Yep.
Masonry in general. Yes, I agree that 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 is like our responsibility, I see, in the long run. But how do we attain those tools as senior members of our lodges to be able to bestow them on the younger ones is the question, right?
Yeah.
What are those tools besides the typical implements that we have already in masonry? Do we draw those out and really break them down and see them as the applicable tools on how a man should govern his life? I think so. Sure, but that requires a lot of contemplation and discussion, which is what we don't do a lot of, right? We're not stopping to talk and communicate with each other a lot nowadays. Everything's quick, brief, quick
Yep.
text, and we're not taking that time to really sit and understand each other and the needs that we have as men. And Masonry is one of the rare organizations where men can still meet to have these discussions. And the beauty and one of the last organizations like this that it has its ritual as well that helps project that. But we're not spending that time, investing that time into cultivating that. And I think that's where we're missing out on the opportunity to truly make good men better and contribute to the masculine ideal of what a great man should really be. The people that you really look up to, right? When like if you think about that ideal father figure or that ideal uncle, right? Who are you?
Mm.
And masonry is that, I think, initiation and threshold into that manhood that we don't get out in the real world nowadays,
Right.
right? I was
Mhm.
reading some book that said women have their periods and that's their initiation into their womanhood.
They're
And
coming of
men
age.
what a,
Yeah.
you age, but you don't have that threshold that you get to
Right.
cross. That quinceañera that we have in
Sure.
the Latin culture, that celebration of your manhood, like when the Native Americans would take him, or in African tribes, they would take the young men and they out to the field and have an initiation with him that was the threshold that crossed him into that manhood. Masonry has that, but we're not exploiting it like we should.
Right.
That's the missed opportunity that we have there, but it's there, and we could definitely do it.
Yeah. The first time I heard anybody talk about this, it was actually it was Angel Millar, probably on A Cult of Personality with Greg Kaminsky, but it was when he did his first book. And I remember some of the things he said infuriated me, but then gave me lots to think about later. And it just made me realize I should probably talk to this guy. And then I haven't. just I just haven't reached out to
You will, you
Angel
will.
Millar. If you're listening, love to have you on to talk about your latest book. I'm super interested in reading.
I'll put in
And
a good word for you. I think I'm going to see him Saturday through a Zoom.
I'm sure he and I will disagree, but again, one of the great things about Masonry is you realize, and it's this idea, the religion on which all men can agree, right? We focus on the things where we disagree, but you should really focus on the areas where that we have in common and what we agree on. I know there's a lot to be negotiated through in
Sure,
lodge
sure.
life, right? And in lodge politics and interlodge politics and grand lodge politics, all of that. But it's just one of these things where when somebody really gets to me, I think back to those times where I was saying things just to get to people. Who
Yeah.
knows how many times I've done that today?
Yeah. And you know what? Who cares? Who cares?
Again, and I will reserve the right to change my mind about people and ideas, right?
Sure.
I think what you were just saying about this, I think that's a huge role for Freemasonry to play, especially in the lives of the younger men that are coming forward. And in fact, it's a challenge to those established in the craft to steward these guys in such a way that their experience will be improved, because many students of the last 50 years have drifted away, but about two-thirds of people don't stick. Now that's traditionally that's about the ratio. Only
Hmm.
one-third stick.
Hmm.
And I think retention is something that needs to be focused on, because we can't burn up 200 hours to make an entered apprentice, a fellow craft, and a master mason, and then just have them drift away.
And what do you think that retention should also be? What should that be?
What do I think is going to contribute to it?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I think the diversification of lodge cultures will contribute. A
Okay.
number one. And the acceptance of generational differences. There are so many forces at work to divide the generations. Oh, these Gen Z kids are lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to work for minimum wage. They know they'll never buy a home or be able to get married and have kids with
Hmm.
what's being offered them. That's the problem, right?
Affordability. Yeah.
There's so many components to each of these generational issues, but the forces that be want to keep us divided, whereas Freemasonry is about what do we have in common, what keeps us together, right?
because
So,
that's the thing, unity, right? Unity is what it's a great fortifier of the edifice and the superstructure. And the
yeah,
minute we start dividing ourselves up, that's when it all falls apart. And that's,
yeah,
I think, one of the secret secret ingredients to the sauce there is how do you fight to keep the peace and harmony in your lodge and the unity amongst the diversity in your lodge and keep it
yeah,
exciting enough that they want to keep coming back over and over to help contribute to the growth of the lodge and this philosophy as well. I think that is the culture that every lodge should strive to create and challenge themselves to create amongst their brothers within them. And I think if you do, you'll rein in a lot of light that people will want to come and look and see, oh, these guys are doing some cool shit here. What do we do? How do I get a piece of that?
yeah. The outside world doesn't talk much about the brotherhood of man. There was a great teacher like 2000 years ago, and I heard a philosopher recently, a Christian apologist, just say it plainly. He was like, the greatest contribution that Jesus made was to teach us that we are all equals. We are a brotherhood of man. That the tribalism is an illusion. And ever since then, the world has torn itself apart, trying to argue about what he was actually teaching us when one can kind of boil it down to a couple of things. Try to be nice to each other for a change.
Yeah.
And the kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. These sorts of
Without a vision, the people perish.
Yeah. These sorts of things, and I don't mean to get political or religious, but it happens always here, it seems.
That's fine. That's
Um,
fine.
yeah, I just think it's a bit of insight to try and focus on the unity, what brings us together. And then Freemasonry constantly banging the drum about the unity. You listen to the quotes from the address to the brethren about how to be a good man, do the right thing, and disappear into the multitude. These sorts of things, young men might have heard it, but they need to have it reinforced.
And I think you're absolutely right, Troy, because I think what's happening in the world around us after all this division,
Hmm.
a lot of people are now waking up and realizing, wait, that's why we're losing. We have to start working together to fight the greater evil that's been forcing us to divide ourselves. And that's what I'm seeing in the zeitgeist more now. It's a lot of people are like, wait a minute, I don't really this my political affiliation was actually doing more to divide us than bring us together. And that's not what I'm really about. And
Right.
now that I'm seeing it clearly, I gotta now start putting it together. That's what the word is, right? This is what I'm hearing. And I'm just like, yeah, that's what I've known all along. And I've been preaching to you guys, but you don't want to listen. You want to be stubborn. You want to go against the grain, and then we suffer. We all suffer because of it. And now you're realizing that it's all of us working together for the service of all, not just one or two different individuals,
Yeah.
right? Not these billionaires that don't care about you individually,
Yeah.
right? And that's, I think, we're starting to see that shit take shape, and hopefully it does, because that's exactly what we need right now. That's the revolution we need is a revolution of unity,
Yeah.
a unity. And again, and Masonry has those tools and concepts in place for it, right?
It sounds like to me you are a man who is fully invested in
And
Freemasonry.
I am, yeah, I put it up against all these other philosophies, and I still haven't found one that has knocked it out, right?
What keeps you fully invested?
That's a good question. When I see somebody, a new brother, that his third language is English, and he could sit there in front of everybody and spit out the proficiency by
Yep.
memory in the long form
You will recite your obligation.
after initially thinking that he would never be able to pull it off. When I see another man's, when I see another man realize their full potential with the tools and implements of masonry that they've been introduced to, that to me is the thing that says, wow, that's powerful. That excites me. That creatively, spiritually excites me to say, this is important. And somebody needs to be here to steward it further and protect it as best as we can. And that's why like you said, I'm fully invested in it. I just show up. That's what I'll just show up.
None of us going to come up with anything better than that. That's
I
about the
mean,
most profound thing we either of us have
yeah,
said
really.
today.
Is that the
That
most
was
profound thing I've said, Troy?
that was really good.
But that's the truth, because
We
that's where
should
I was,
stop now while we're at it.
because I
That's
was
it.
sitting,
We're done.
because sometimes
Mic drop.
I sit there and I help them decipher what they have to memorize, and I see them struggle, and I see them kind of, but then when it clicks, when I see that click, I go, see, it's not a test of you memorizing this. It's a test on you believing in yourself.
Mhm.
And when they get that, then it's like, wow, their potential goes beyond masonry, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your potential goes beyond masonry now. Now you have the confidence to go tackle anything outside of this lodge. And
Mhm.
that's beautiful. And I think what better human experience and opportunity can you bestow on anybody than that stamp of confidence that you have the potential to become whatever the hell you want to become if you put your mind into it and focus. And I think that's the greatest gift masonry can give an individual.
Go ahead and practice those excellencies of character outside of the lodge that are inculcated in it.
Yes. Yes.
Excellencies of character, not just merely goodnesses of character or virtues.
Yeah.
Excellencies,
And
man.
not the tools of masonry and not go around preaching about masonry, but the excellencies of character.
Yeah, I love that term.
So yeah, that's what has kept me excited, and it's that timeless emotional feeling and connection that I feel, that I know that this is, I'll go off and do other things, but deep down inside it flows through me.
90 minutes later, you're not slowing down. We could shoot the shit all night, I think.
Oh,
Couldn't
well,
we?
what other questions do you have? You
Like I
just want
said,
to know.
I don't that we're gonna
I
quit
mean,
while we're ahead because I don't think any of us is gonna be more profound than that was. I mean it, brother. I'm not being glib or controversial. I'm not trying to confront. I thought that was
well,
really
because
profound.
it just comes down to what are we doing this for?
Yeah, exactly.
We talk
Because
about,
it's a lot, right? It's a lot of time and energy and
it's
effort.
deep. It's
We could be we
Fight
could be
Club
at
and
home playing.
Masonry
We could
is
be at
about self-improvement.
home playing video games or doing anything else, right? We all
Yeah.
choose to do this. All of us choose to do this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we do. We do. And you think it's about self-improvement, and it is in the beginning, but once you cross that threshold, it turns into something else if you connect it to it on that level, because many people don't and they disappear. I had some people tell me, some brothers tell me, hey, you're already a past master. You received your Hiram Award. You got your Mason of the Year. What are you still doing here? And I'm like, and
I
it kind
love
of,
it.
it was almost like an insult, but not. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm here because I want to see the next guy realize their potential.
Yeah.
Should I leave? Because you're not doing it. So somebody has to.
You should not leave. Keep going. Ask yourself, why are they asking you why you're hanging around? What are you
Like,
in
why
the
don't you
way
want
of?
me here?
What are you in the way of that they want to do just by
Exactly.
showing up?
Why don't you want me here? Am I in your way?
Yes.
Am I bothering you? Is there too much education now that it's too much light for you to handle? Is that what's happening here?
Am I bothering you? Am I bothering you?
There is too much mayo on my sandwich.
Yeah, we have been going an hour and 40 almost.
For sure.
We
No
should
worries.
wind up and I gotta go get some rack time. I would open it up if you have a question for me.
I think the question that I had for you was what I asked you earlier. What do you see needs to be the change in masonry that needs to make it better, right? And you
Well,
answered the diversity,
yeah,
the openness, and the unity. So
an adoption of philosophy of the love of wisdom and the teaching of the love of wisdom so that people can open their minds and go pursuing that knowledge for themselves.
true.
I,
So why are you still in it?
ooh, because I love it. And I was involved in other things before,
Yeah.
and it, it didn't, this appealed to my ego because they put me in charge of stuff right away. And what I've realized since is that that's a trap. You get involved in masonry and it will take exactly
Yep.
more than you're willing to give it. And it will always be like that. I'm an enthusiast I get very enthusiastic about things. And I became enthusiastic about the craft when I realized that much of what holds together our modern world were the ideas that we inculcate in the lodge. And there are worse places to spend your time than with your brethren about the lodge. And my mentor, Lon Duquette, often will say, whatever keeps you out of the bar.
Yeah.
And there's some of that. Look,
I've heard a couple of Masonic wives say the same thing.
the Masonic widows, right? Where they're widows before their husband's dead because that look, the guy that brought me into the craft was a member of 8 lodges. His wife had predeceased him by 10 years. He could be out 6 nights a week
Oh.
between lodge and chapter, and he was a hell of a good guy.
If I'm like maybe I'm super retired, I'm just like just enjoying the last few years of my life. You know what? Sure. Hey,
That's what he did. That
okay, then that's fine.
he was
Good for him.
and you wouldn't believe the turnout at his funeral.
I could imagine.
That's another thing you notice being a younger, I'm 51 now, but I'm still a younger member of the craft because I'm below the median age, getting closer. But you notice when you join that you go to a lot of funerals.
Yeah.
And one thing you do notice too is that in the modern world, death and our own mortality is shoved aside. You only really talk about it in church. And if you don't go to church, and most people don't, it's all shoved aside and sanitized and goes away. And part of the lesson of being self observant and knowing yourself is that this is limited. And if
Hmm.
you got stuff you're here to do, you should get about doing that and stop wasting your time with distractions,
Yeah.
right? And one of the ways to realize that very quickly is to spend a bunch of time at Masonic funerals listening to what these guys did in their lives, the families they had, the lodges they attended, the achievements they had. And every guy's story is different. Lots of guys, you go to their Masonic funeral and there's a whole world about them you didn't know, even though you knew these guys real well. Some of them built companies or had 50-year careers in a union.
That's the bottom line, right? You hear about their contributions
Yeah,
to the world and not the car that they drove, how much money they had, the Rolex watches they wore. It
yeah,
was really how much they impacted others by their service in creating these things. And I
yeah,
think we are builders as Masons, and we need to be looking at what are we building to leave the world a better place
indeed.
when we pass on.
Indeed.
That's the bottom line.
Dago, this was amazing.
And same here. Thank you. Great
What
conversation.
what are you
For the
working on
first time
next?
speaking with you, this was great. Can't
Yeah,
wait to meet you in
what are
person.
you working on next? What do
Right
you
now, we're working on the next issue of the Fraternal Review magazine, the top 10 books
Yeah,
that every Mason should have. It's a book
yeah.
poll that we
I've seen
do.
your top 10 lists sometimes. They're good. I
Yes,
like
well,
that.
talk about him. I wish if you want, we'll have the guest editor of that issue come on your podcast and discuss those 10 books or one of our guys because we want to visit that list every 10 years
Yep.
so we can have a breath on what the culture of Masonry was reading and talking about during the decades
Yeah.
as Masonic time.
What is the observing the craft of this day?
Yes, what is the observing craft of this day and what knocked it out and what changed in the last 30 years?
Right?
I think that's kind of, and that's how we market the magazine when we think about themes. What are people really downloading a lot of from our list in the past 2 years that we should continue discussing?
What are you working on personally?
Personally, I am actually tinkering with a book version of Fight Club and Freemasonry.
Nice.
So that, and then just writing, also doing some screenwriting. There's a couple of
Brilliant.
festivals that I'm applying to this fall, so I want to make sure I have the time to submit to that. And we also run the Illumination Lecture Series at our lodge, so getting ready to discuss year 2027 with that. So I've got a lot of little
Nice.
things in the pot that keep me busy.
Invite me virtually. I'll come to Memory Palace
No,
on
in
the
person,
Great
got to
White.
be in person. So when you're
Oh,
ready to do
oh,
the person, you say, "Hey, the time is right. If you want me there, you got to get me now."
let's see what happens during the midterm elections and then
Oh,
I'll
that's fine. We'll wait till after the midterms. Shit, we'll wait till 2028 if you want. And just
that's a long time. I miss Vegas already.
We'll
I was in
see.
San Diego last Christmas.
Brett
It's
Wolf
just like,
hasn't been
man, it's
out
a shame
here.
I stopped coming down here.
You gotta come down. Or if you plan a trip down, let me know.
Yes, I got to drive down and see Lon.
In Sacramento,
Yeah,
you're gonna be a little farther
maybe
away.
maybe more than once, but that's what I
If you
got going.
drive down to see him, plan it around annual communication at the California Grand Lodge, which is in October.
Okay. And are they
And
having it in
then
Sacramento or somewhere in North
it's in
Cali?
San Francisco.
Yeah, that's
It's not that far.
no, it's only 22 hours drive from here.
Not when you're in Sacramento to San
No,
Francisco.
but from
Sure,
Vancouver.
no, sure. It's a weekend, and we got vendor tables, and the
Ooh,
research lodge always sets up a table.
nice.
Have you ever been there?
No,
You got
not
to
that one.
check out the lodge room that they built. I think it'll be a good weekend, or just a full day. You could hang out there and really see how it all works. But it's in October, and it'd be cool to meet up there.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Maybe you'll see me.
Yes, just let me know if you're there.
All right, brother. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes with me today.
Yes, brother. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your podcast and out to the big event, the conference in next month. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we'll
And
see you at Esotericism and Freemasonry Conference 2026 on Saturday, September 19th. Tickets at
yes,
esotericmasonry.com.
I love it. We'll see you there. Thank you.
Have a good night, brother.
You too.
Thanks for listening today. You could support the show by liking, sharing, and subscribing on your favorite podcast syndicator. Even more helpful, leave us a review. Coming up on The Mystic Tie, EFC keynote brother-in-law Milo Duquette, EFC 2026 co-organizers Brother Ken Lane and Brother Brett Wolf, and the creators of a new 78-card Masonic Wisdom deck. Stay tuned. We are looking to create a directory of Freemasonic events and publications. If you are aware of something coming up, please let me know by email. In the meantime, check out the Masonic Conference's website at masonicconferences.com. Esotericism in Freemasonry Conference will be held on Saturday, September 19th. Our keynote speaker will be Brother Lon Milo Duquette, author of The Tarot Architect. Brothers Ike Baker, Doug Russell, Dago Rodriguez, and Joseph Wages are all slated to present. Get your tickets at esotericmasonry.com. For other events, check out our calendar at mystictie.com, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter while you are there. Graphics and web hosting are by Artsabo Creative. A special thanks to Organist for our theme music. Happy to meet, sorry to part, and happy to meet again.